We start off with a breaking development in the long-running fight against terrorism. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has commented on the extradition of Tahir Hussain Rana to India. Rana is accused of helping plan the 2008 Mumbai terror attacks that killed 166 people, including 6 Americans. The coordinated attacks targeting hotels, a railway station and a Jewish centre shocked the world. This move marks a significant moment in US-India counter-terror operations and sends a strong signal that justice has no expiration date. Well, we start now with our major top story, and amid the bilateral tariff strikes between the US and China, China says that it will raise tariffs on US goods to 125%, further deepening the trade war. Furthermore, China says that US tariffs defy basic economic laws and common sense, and that it would ignore further tariff hikes by the United States. Later, an EU Council spokesperson said that the EU's top officials and China's leaders are due to hold their next summit marking 50 years of ties in China in July. Adding on, China said on Friday that the United States should bear full responsibility for the global economic turbulence. Earlier today, Chinese President Xi Jinping called the US moves unilateral bullying and has urged the EU to push back. His request was responded to by Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, saying that tensions over trade should not impede cooperation between the EU and China, and that the world needs the US and China to talk. Let's listen to what he said.
Tanto España como Europa tenemos un importante déficit comercial con China que hay que trabajar por subsanar y que no debemos dejar que las tensiones comerciales se interpongan al potencial crecimiento de nuestra relación entre China y España y entre China y la Unión Europea. Que las guerras comerciales no son buenas, no gana nadie y que probablemente no, estoy seguro, el mundo necesita que tanto China como Estados Unidos hablen.
Meanwhile, Xi is also reportedly set to begin a regional tour from the 14th to the 18th of April, visiting Vietnam, Malaysia and Cambodia to strengthen ties and sign key agreements. 40 potentially with Vietnam alone, covering rail and defence. Meanwhile, Cambodia, Vietnam and Malaysia, facing new US tariffs, have approached Washington for relief. Beijing has shifted its focus to multilateral diplomacy. Xi and Premier Li Qiang have engaged the EU, South Africa, Saudi Arabia and Malaysia, seeking support for a fairer global trade system. While Trump's pause cooled tensions with some allies, China is intensifying efforts to counter US pressure through regional unity and strategic deals. Well, joining us to discuss these latest developments is Zhu Qingdou, a political analyst joining us from Beijing. Zhu, thank you very much for being here. My first question has to be around the moves that we've had in recent hours from China. Given the fact that these tariffs have been moving backwards and forwards, why has President Xi Jinping decided to go once again with further tariffs to the US, given the instability we've seen in global markets?
Good question. And there are two choices. One, you can cave in and be bullied by Trump and his people, and yet you still get nothing out of the negotiation with Trump unless you make tremendous concessions at the expense of your national interests. And the other way is the Chinese way. That is, China is open to negotiations, but those negotiations must be held on an equal footing and with mutual respect. China is a sovereign nation, is an independent nation, and should be treated as much. So the Trump approach is really to be using this maximum pressure to aggressively push other countries or bully other smaller economies to accept their sometimes, let's say, unreasonable demand. For example, annexation of Canada, Greenland, etc. So should countries to agree with such a demand? This is a horrible, horrible approach, horrible precedent. And he is setting the rules for the world with uncertainty, with risks, and with chaos. This is not the way to go. China is not only defending itself with counter tariffs against the U.S., but also defending the international stability, the international rules. We often talk about rules-based international order. What are the rules?
Yes, absolutely. Well, looking at conversations that might happen, you mentioned there that China is open to discussions with the US, but given these tit-for-tat tariffs increasing and causing further global economic instability, how likely do you think those conversations are right now?
Good question, but to be, despite all the talk of, we all understand the reality that is the U.S. is the sole factor causing such a global calamity in terms of the stock market, in terms of the global trade and investment, global economy. But at the end of the day, I think there will be discussion between Beijing and Washington. Otherwise, I don't see a solution. And I think there will be a summit meeting, or phone conversation between President Xi and Trump at some point. But we don't know how that will start, because Trump is waiting for Xi to call him. And, Beijing would say the U.S. started or created this trouble, and they need to fix this problem coming back from those tariffs, and then we can talk. So this is a dilemma right now, but ultimately, they have to talk to each other and find a solution, not only between themselves, but also for the benefit of the global economy.
Absolutely. We are running short on time, but very quickly, given the fact that China has said they won't go any further with these retaliatory tariffs, how do you think this will play out over the coming days, and what do you think the final solution will be to ending this ongoing trade dispute?
Well, I think the U.S. should understand that if they have grimaces, if they see problems with trading relationship with China, with the Vietnamese, with Cambodia, with Singapore, with Australia, with everybody else, and then they need to be faithfully start a negotiation with other countries. Look, there's a problem. We need to solve this problem. Nowadays, they are using this bullying acts. They are acting like a gangster, basically, being the #1 country, bullying smaller economies. This is not the way to go. We have to talk. But I think, this is a big question. Can the world go ahead without the U.S.? I think probably this is the time they can.
Xu, thank you ever so much for your time and your insight there. We will, of course, continue with these ongoing tariffs, and it's not